I'm not that late. It's not that late. It's not that late. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Diddy, part 16. And I know I missed part 14 and 15. Those of you who are looking for me, I am sorry. I am sorry. Jewish holiday. There was nothing I could do about it. I was shut down Monday and Tuesday. I did put notifications up, particular Good Logic. .locals.com. That's where you can find everything out, and it's free. You get all your notifications. It's free to get notifications of wherever I am, whenever I'm uploading videos, whenever I'm taking time off, because of holidays that 99% of the world never heard of. That's where. Now, I will also say that there's no more Jewish holidays during the balance of this scheduled trial. Next Jewish holiday or time that I would even be thinking about taking off is like in 40 days or thereabouts. Moses went up the mountain, came down. Yeah, 40 days. So like 38 days. But this trial is supposed to run, and that's when we have a fast day. That's not even like a holiday. It's more like a fast day. But that's when the whole golden calf thing happened. Not that you guys care about Jewish stuff, holidays and stuff like that. But yeah. And even then, I'm technically allowed to work. So, yeah, that's 40 days. That's 40 days. We're supposed to be done, which would put us at what? July 14th. We're supposed to be done with this trial by July 4th. So, we're all good. We're all good. I'm going to be here, God willing. Rain or shine, I expect to be in the courthouse every day to balance the trial. So, I apologize to those of you who missed me the last couple of days. Let's get on into it. We got this woman whose name, every time they say it, sounds different to me. So I looked it up, and it's spelled Bryana Bonolong, like Bonolong. Oh, that's very kind of you, Kat. Thank you, Catherine. Remember, for 26 months. Let's give you the horn for that. Over 2 years. Oh my God bless you, Catherine. 40 days almost never goes well. Almost never goes well. Yeah. Okay. So anyhow, yeah. So I'm going to quickly recap what happened this morning. They had an expert witness on, and this is a guy who was breaking down. Hey, thank you. So I'm going to give you the horn too. See, once you're here for 2 years, I got to give you the big horn. You don't hear it. I'm the one who hears it. I understand that, but all right, I'm going to give you one horn for both of you. This is my screen that's happening. That's happening soon. That's happening 10:45, which means I got to move. But the horn I gave both you and Catherine was that right there. 2 years for two years. God bless you both. Okay, so just to recap quickly what happened this morning. We had an expert witness who came in over the last couple of days while I was on vacation. I did catch up on what was happening in the trial. There was all sorts of talk as far as the video from the Intercontinental that went viral. This is the video of you. It starts innocently enough. You just see like this woman walking down the hotel lobby, coming over to elevator bank, hitting a button, and putting on her shoes as she's about to get. She's waiting for the elevator, and the next thing you know, some guy, some random individual, whoever it might be, happens to come running into the elevator bank there, grabs her by the back of her hood, throws her to the floor, and starts kicking her before trying to drag her away. And then we see her on the phone, on the house phone in the elevator bank. And we later learned that this is Cassie Ventura. We verified that this is definitely Diddy. And she tells us that she fled a freak off because he had punched her in the face. This is what we learned. Now, much of the world saw this video. It ended up being released at a certain point in time, and folks got to see it, and it didn't make Diddy look good at all. We also learned that Diddy paid $100,000 to one of the security guards. This guy came in and testified about how he took the money. Well, over the last couple of days, I missed that testimony. So I'm not going to break that down, because if you want to learn about it, you can learn it the same way I did. So, and I can't add anything to that. And the reason I'm here is to add value. If I'm not adding value, what am I doing? So I can add value by actually going to the courthouse and telling you what I'm perceiving happening there and the legal arguments that are happening there. So that's where we're going to stick our focus. Anyhow, in order to try and strengthen the issues. The defense was basically trying to say that if you look at that video, it sort of looks not fluid. They were claiming that it's been played at double speed or faster than normal. It doesn't look like he's moving at a normal pace, because it does jump a little bit. And they're trying to claim that it's unfair because it makes it look like he kicked harder than he did or whatever, and that it's basically the video. Seems like they're trying to get it out. They're trying to get it out and say that this is prejudicial and not accurately portraying what happened there. So in order to try and avoid that problem, the state brought in an expert witness in video, and he basically came out and explained that the way the video operates in this surveillance footage is it's not on all the time, and it'll quickly shut off if there's no motion. So anytime there's no motion, or it's not detecting motion, it shuts down and then it pops back on. But someone might have moved a little bit in the interim. So that's basically why it sort of looks like the California Raisins like stop thing, like Max Headroom type of like kind of thing, like not a little bit jolty at times. He explained a little bit more about the way the video operates, and that the walls apparently never it's like an old image of the walls, and it's only the parts where people are moving which are new, which is fascinating to me personally. Anyhow, a lot of people took the defense to task this morning, including myself, because what they did was they started going through the video over and over and frame by frame, and here he is kicking her in the head, and but why is it jumping? And they're trying to attack the credibility of the experts, but all anyone takes away from it is more and more visual of Diddy just kicking a woman in the fetal position, like looking like a lunatic. So it's like, and I mentioned this, I haven't looked it up. I've heard this story. I read this story. I assume it's true. If I'm wrong, someone will correct me, about the Rodney King defense. I read this. I was too young to actually follow the Rodney King case in any great detail. If you're unfamiliar with Rodney King, this was a black man who basically was chased by the LAPD and ended up getting pulled out of his car and kicked and kicked and kicked and beaten him by like a circle of cops around him. The video, this was like in 1990 or so. The video, someone videotaped it and it went viral. It was like one of the first videos to ever go viral. Everyone saw it and was like horrified by seeing all these cops just like, and it caused all sorts of racial tensions. When the police were defending themselves in court for assaulting him. So defense counsel there decided our strategy is we are going to be attacking this video by showing it frame by frame by frame. And I read somewhere a long time ago, maybe 30 years ago, that the strategy that defense counsel had in that scenario is we want to have the jury become completely desensitized to the video. They've all seen it. We know they've seen it, and it's horrible to look at. And the first time you see it, and this is something psychologically, the way we as humans work. I've even used this story of the defense in other settings, non-courtroom settings, to just dissect human nature. And human nature is that the first time you see something horrific, you're mortified. And the second time, you're mortified. And the third time, you're like, wow, that's really gross. And the fourth time, you're like, that's so terrible. And the fifth time, you're like, wow, that's really bad. And the sixth time, you're like, I can't believe they did that. And by the time you get to the 20th time, you're like, yeah, well, that's what happened. And by the time you get to the 30th, 40th time, it's like, yeah, we know. We saw this. We know. And it doesn't affect you emotionally the same way nearly as much. Recognizing this, the defense counsel decided we're going to play this over and over and over and over and over again. And over again and over, until the jury doesn't wince anymore when they see it. Quite the contrary. They're like, yeah, it's no big deal. And they used it very effectively. And so from what I understand, I don't know if all of them got off, but a lot of them ended up getting far lighter sentences than people anticipated. And the strategy worked. So you might think to yourself, okay, if we look at this Diddy kicking Cassie video, maybe they feel like if they show it to the jury over and over again, it's going to work to desensitize them and make. But there's so many flaws in that thought process. So many flaws in that thought process. Here's the first flaw. The first flaw is this. The reason it worked is because they showed it like 100 times over a span of a month. That's different than showing it like 4 times over the span of an hour. It's not the same desensitization. The second thing is, since you're not desensitizing them, all you're really doing is giving us another opportunity to see, oh, wow, he really landed that kick. So it's not helping in that regard. The other thing is, in the Rodney King scenario, the video was everything. That was the whole trial was about what everyone had seen on the video. That's what they were defending themselves for, the actions taken on that video. So the video was the entire case against those cops. So you're going to be making that the center of everything, and that's what you have to take down. If you don't take that down, you lose. The case is over. The defendants are going away. So you really need to make that your focus, because that is the accusatory finger that's pointing at the cops saying, you did this. That's not at all the scenario here with this particular video in Diddy. Because even though we understand that, yeah, it makes him look terrible, it makes people hate Diddy or whatever, feel a certain way about him, and it paints him in a terrible light and look like a lunatic, and Lord knows he is. First and foremost, it's not the only thing that makes him look like a lunatic by a light year. Second of all, that's not what he's really charged with. So why are you making such a big stink about it? It's like, just do everything you can. Be like, yeah, it was a terrible day. It was like whatever. He was drugged up and whatever. But it's like, you go through a whole thing. Let's look at this part here. You can see the top part of his foot there really makes contact with the back of her head. Oh, that's right, Jim. You can see there how her head snaps forward when his foot kicks the back of her head. It's like, why? Why? You're the defense. Why would you do that? Why? And I heard someone critique me saying, "Oh yeah, you know a lot better than the nine seasoned attorneys he has on his defense team." Okay, you know what? First and foremost, if you're thinking that, and that's a fair critique, I guess. I mean, there's a fallacy in it, and it's appeal to authority. You can make a better argument is they know the case far better than you ever can because they have access to information you don't have access to. That's a far stronger point. But first and foremost, you don't know that all 9 of them agreed. You really just need the one deciding vote to say, no, this is the way we're going to approach this witness. That's first and foremost. So it could be it was 7-2 against this, but the more powerful voices in the room, the lead attorney comes there. Maybe it was Nifilo, maybe it was Tenny Garagos, the one who was doing the cross-examination. Maybe they overruled. So you don't know that the majority of them disagree with me. There's no way to know that. We'll never know that. Second of all, I know how it plays in the room. I hear how it plays. Why should I assume that the people who are watching with me and on video, the same thing that the people in the jury room are saying? Why should I assume the jury is reacting any differently than the folks sitting in a room with me? So I certainly have a better feel for how it plays than someone reading about it on Twitter. So anyway, so even if it was, their strategy, it was a questionable strategy to start with, and it doesn't, as far as what we saw in the viewing room, it didn't play well. Anyway, that's all I got on that. Let me just hop to a couple of things here. Brian Ogden, God bless you, brother. Gifting 5 Good Logic memberships. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And also, what did I have here? Let me take care of something real fast here. The other thing I had to start the chat here. I put a notification in locals about my next stream because I got to keep this one short. It's 10:45. Okay, so I got to keep this short. Good evening, fearless leader Joe and fellow diggers. Thank you so much, Fletcher boy. I appreciate you stopping on in and saying hello. Very much obliged to you for that. Okay, let me do a quick look over in the Diddeo. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. All right. While you're there, if you could please like and subscribe, I would be most obliged. I'd be most obliged. Anyway, let me give you a little background about Bryana Bonolong, which everyone calls Bana. Everyone calls her Bana. Okay? Yeah. 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 What he did there was terrible. It was inexcusable. Inexcusable. So let me let me give you a little background here, okay, about Bana. She's a drug dealer, okay? Drug dealer friend of Cassie. They met in 2015, and what she tells us in her direct testimony, and we've heard about her. We heard about her from Cassie. We heard about her from what's the guy? Deontay Nash, who was probably the best witness for the state so far. Deontay Nash, just very crisp in his delivery, his likability, everything about him was very favorable for the state. And and also documenting that Cassie really didn't want to go to some, if not, all the pre-calls that he saw her going to. So he was a very significant nail. If in fact he gets convicted, he is a very significant nail in the coffin. And he talked about Bana also, Kerry Morgan, another friend of Cassie, her oldest friend, predates when she met Diddy. I think she even mentioned Bana. They used to hang out all the time. That was like the foursome: Cassie, Bana, Deontay, Kerry. And maybe they didn't hang out together in group, but they basically all would do drugs together and hang out and go shopping or do other stuff together. And that's basically where Cassie was spending her time, especially during the latter stages of her relationship with Diddy. In the earlier days, she was much less into drugs. The longer she knows Diddy, the harder she gets into drugs. And one of the things you need to be aware of is there's been some testimony from Cassie herself that during the latter stages of her relationship, Diddy was very much against her doing drugs with anyone but him. He was okay with her doing drugs with him, but he did not like her doing drugs with other people. And the one person that he seemed to be most bothered by, the two people he was most bothered by, were Kerry Morgan and her oldest BFF, and Bana, who she meets in 2015. Now, the situation where she meets Bana is she's actually working some side deal designing T-shirts with Bana. Bana's a graphic designer, and she's designing T-shirts for this company called Diamond something. I don't remember what it's called. It's Diamond something. Doesn't really matter. And her testimony on direct, she told over 3 different stories, which become the focus of the cross. And I really want to focus on the cross. I'm going to go quickly through the direct. But the one thing that is unique to Bana compared to anyone else is the famous balcony story. And we've heard about this since opening statement, that there was this incident on the 17th floor of Cassie was living on the 17th floor and Bana was on the balcony. And we've heard about how Diddy basically tried throwing her off over the balcony and then takes her and throws her onto the balcony, and she lands on the balcony furniture and suffers serious injuries. This is what that's Cassie was very mad at him about it, and that's the one thing we know about her. The other thing we know about her is that she does drugs with Cassie a lot, more and more over time, going from 2015 to 2018. So really starting in 2016, they start really doing drugs, and 17, they're really hardcore into it by 2018. If not, it's at the very least weekly, if not a daily thing. Somewhere between daily and weekly is what we got. And she was even getting drugs and providing them to Cassie. They both were working for this company called Diamonds or something like that, and they were supposed to be doing some sort of T-shirt design, other clothing design. And she tells over the story of how Diddy came up behind her, grabbed her, that she was on the balcony, that she's on the balcony smoking cigarette, and that Diddy comes up, and they show a picture of the balcony, and she says she's 5'1", and that the balcony comes like up to her waist. It's basically, it's got like a little railing, like most balconies. It's a built-in cement type of balcony with a railing that's like 2 inches above the cement line. So, and it's got glass windows that, you always slide open the glass window door and you go out onto the balcony. It's a nice long balcony. It's a very fancy building that Diddy was putting her up in. So Bana says that she stayed by Cassie's all the time. Sometimes she would sleep in her room, sometimes on the couch, sometimes on the balcony, which to me is weird, but okay, it's LA, and I guess the weather is pretty nice there. So Diddy comes up behind her, grabs her from behind, and lifts her and basically tries shoving her over. Now, the way I understood the story as being told is that her feet were on the railing. He lifts her up and her feet are on the railing. I don't know. See, when I first heard trying to dangle her off the balcony, you picture like Michael Jackson with the baby, that he's like, holding her by her feet off the edge of the balcony. That did not happen. That did not happen. And maybe shoving her over, and he's like holding her like while she's like, her waist or her top is hanging over the edge of the balcony. Maybe that's what happened. But she said her feet were on the railing. I don't know what part of her she's grabbing, what part of her he's grabbing, unless he's lifting her up. And if he would let go, she would fall back down onto the balcony, not fall off the edge of the building. It's very confusing. It's very confusing. Even when she was on direct, it was somewhat confusing as to exactly how they're positioned with each other. So there's that was on direct. And then he threw her to the side, and Cassie sees her getting thrown to the side. Where Cassie is throughout this whole thing is a point of contention that comes up on Cross. And I want to spend some time talking about Cross. The other two incidents they talked about, she talked about her 29th birthday. We've heard all about Cassie's 29th birthday, how she's karaokeing with Bana, Deontay, and Kerry. And they had this party that they're taking her out to the Blind Dragon, which is a karaoke place. And Diddy shows up and takes her away to go to a freak off. So we've heard all about this from Cassie, from Deontay, and today from Bana also. And she said she saw them fighting, which she ended up clarifying was arguing, not physically fighting. And so we heard about, so that's what we heard about on direct. We also heard about two more incidents that we had never heard from anyone before. The two new incidents we heard about is that she said she's asleep and there's pounding, and then Diddy gets in. How he gets in, she doesn't know. He's standing in the foyer. Cassie's in the hall, and he throws a knife at Cassie, which went very close to her, according to her, but didn't hit Cassie. How does Cassie react? Cassie picks up the knife and throws it back at Diddy. This is the incident that we heard about. The other incident we heard about is she's at a photo shoot. Diddy comes up to her and grabs her really close and like whispers into her face. That he says to her, "I am the devil. I can kill you." What led to that? She doesn't know. Oh, also when she was on the balcony, I should mention this. I almost forgot that Diddy was yelling, "You know what you did. You know what you did." She's like, "I don't know. What did I do? I don't know. What did I do?" And he's screaming, "I know what you did." And this went on for like the 15, 20 seconds that he's trying to throw her off the balcony. That's what we got. That's what we got. Okay. She says on the balcony that he lifted her up and put her on the railing, that she's 5'1", 115 pounds. The manner in which he's testifying is like someone who is very afraid. Even on direct, the questions have to be leading her to get her anywhere. And she said, so that was going on for like 15 seconds, the whole "you know what you did" thing. And that she's facing the view, meaning her back is to the window, the glass door behind her, and she's facing the view. So he's holding her from behind. Okay. Anyway, she goes back and she says she's struggling from all sorts of trauma ever since then. She can't sleep. She's got night terrors and paranoia ever since the balcony thing. She also showed her injuries, terrible injuries that she's showing there, where she said there was a puncture in her leg and her she's got a welt, which I would say I estimated as being 5 inches in diameter, perfect circle welt. So that she's sustained from landing on the, she says she's sustained from landing on the furniture. Also, she says she has back and neck injuries. One other thing I should bring up is she's in the process of suing Diddy. This is another thing that comes up. She's suing him for $10 million. She filed this lawsuit back in January. Oh, and also she's the drug supplier for Cassie. She was like the hookup. What type of drugs are we talking? X, Molly, ketamine, Oxy for Cassie. Cassie was very big into the painkillers. And yeah. Anyhow, so she's got these lasting effects, and she said that she got a phone call from Rob Holiday, and the state was really struggling on direct near the end of her testimony. That after she filed this lawsuit, she got a phone call from Rob Holiday, and I'm sorry, she filed this lawsuit in 2020. She filed a demand in 24. She filed a demand letter in January 24, where she was asking, and then she ended up following up with a lawsuit. Rob Holiday is another guy who she said hung out with them. He was also this guy who was in and out of Diddy's sphere. Deontay seems to really hate him. He calls him a 2-bit producer, really thinks he's a loser. Bana goes back with Rob Holiday before she even knows Cassie. She brought Rob Holiday into the group. And she says, I got a phone call from Diddy. He's FaceTiming me right after my lawyer made the demand. And I could see he's in Diddy's backyard. And what he said, the first thing he said was, "Doo." We couldn't get any more because the defense objected to the nature of this conversation. And frankly, they probably had a basis for that because you can't talk about settlement conversations. You just can't talk about that because that really, public policy is very strongly against discussing any sort of settlement conversations. There's good reason for that because we worry that if we allow people to disclose conversations that happen for the purposes of settlement, which it seems like it was a settlement conference being conducted by a liaison who's comfortable to both parties, that it discourages settlement talks. So public policy, I know this is the law in New York, probably in California where this conversation happened, but it doesn't matter because we're here in New York. Public policy is very, 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 very much against ever allowing any testimony or disclosure of settlement negotiations or conversations that relate to it whatsoever. You're never supposed to tell the court about it. You're never supposed to tell the judge about it. You're certainly not supposed to tell the jury about it because there's a fear also that, it's not fair that if he makes an offer to make a case go away, that doesn't mean there's legitimacy to her claims. It could be just worth it to him. It might be worth it to him to offer $1 million rather than having to pay $4 million to a lawyer. So that's why it's considered, it's something you can't talk about, and they couldn't get it in at all. Let's get to cross. She got immunity for this deal, and that's where on cross we had Nicole Westmoreland for the defense, who really did such a bang-up job on this. I'm going to try to get through this very quickly. So she says that she's asking about her immunity, and she says that means you can't be protected. You can't be prosecuted as long as you tell the truth. You understand that. You have to tell the truth. If you don't tell the truth, you can be prosecuted. And who decides whether or not you're telling the truth, as far as you understand? She says the prosecutor. She says that's right. And the point that she's making here is you want to tell the truth. When she's telling the truth, it just means you're telling them what they want to hear. They're the ones deciding what the truth is. So she doesn't tell the truth. She just has to tell the prosecutors what they want to hear. Great point. Right out of the gates. So it doesn't mean she's telling the truth. It means she's telling what the prosecutors want to believe is the truth, or have the jury believe is the truth. God bless you, Nana Nose. Thank you so much for the 5 Good Logic memberships. You're awesome. I can't go through the list because I'm trying to run here so I can get to my next show. So she talked about how she met her working for the Diamond Supply Company, and the first time that she went into Cassie's house, and Bana is struggling to remember anything, struggling to understand the question, struggling to, can you please rephrase that? There was a lot of contention of, I don't remember, I don't know, I don't remember, what do you mean? I don't understand the question, for questions that were not that complicated. Not that complicated at all, but just, that's funny. Yeah. Who says I don't shower with lye soap? You don't know. No one knows. Only my hairdresser knows for sure. Nate! Look up FRE Rule 408, compromise offers negotiations. This is federal court. There you go. God bless you. They're very strict about Rule 408. I got places to go and people to see and other streams to do. So I'll take your word for it. God bless you, brother. Okay, so and I appreciate it. Good to see you, brother, as always. Okay, so let me get into this awesome cross that she did. And again, I'm not saying this because I'm rooting for Diddy. I'm really not. I think when there's some people, a lot of people seem to have very vested interest in the outcome of this case. And to me, I have a very, very vested interest in seeing good lawyering. And I really don't like either side. So when I see good lawyering or bad lawyering, I want to call it to your attention. And if I can give you over what the vibe of the room is, that's better too. I had a woman sitting 8 feet from me who was going on and on about how they can't prove it on this, and it's just hearsay when they say that, and all sorts of crazy, stupid, and this is perjury, and she's a crazy Diddy supporter who basically wouldn't convict him if we had video of him holding a gun to her face saying, you're gonna go bang that escort. She'd be like, we don't know that the video's real. Just every excuse possible. And then you have other folks who, like, basically, they'll see something like, I can't believe Diddy said that he has to work, through the night. He should go to jail. I mean, it's like there's crazy extremes, and I feel weird in how little I care about this outcome of this case, probably because I think he's a terrible human being, but I also think these charges are terrible charges to fit. So that's why I'm like, you both deserve to lose. And the best thing I can do is break down for you when I see great lawyering. And this afternoon, we saw some great lawyering from Nicole Westmoreland on behalf of the Diddy Defense, and that's what I'm going to bring to you. So she says, did you go? So you would hang out together. So that means you went. So you go shopping, yeah. You do your nails, yeah. You went to a lot of parties. I don't remember. You don't remember? You said that you were always partying. She's like, yeah, well, yeah. So you went to a lot of parties. No. Well, maybe I don't really like the way you're using the word party here. So, okay, how would you use it? So we would party, but we didn't go to parties. And apparently party is the vernacular for doing drugs. So we partied together. Oh, okay. And she asked you, and that first night you were there, so you talked about the photo shoot that you did, so that she took some pictures of Cassie by a pool. And you asked if she liked to get high, and you both got high, and then spent more time together. And most of the time you were getting high when you're getting together. And what did you do? So you did marijuana, and she asked about the impact of these different drugs that they used to do together, from marijuana to edibles to coke to ketamine to ecstasy to Molly to something called G, which she wasn't sure what it was, but Diddy gave it to her one time, she says, called G, to acid, to perks, to Cocoa Puffs. That was a new one. So if you're not down with what the kids are doing today, apparently they take marijuana, put cocaine in, sprinkle it with cocaine, and smoke it. And they call that Cocoa Puffs. So she said, yeah, we both really like Cocoa Puffs. That's true. But the whole time, everything, the way she was answering the entire time, I made this note at this point, she just sounds very defensive. Very, very defensive. And that she would sell drugs. She would get drugs and then sell them to Cassie, and she actually made money by selling it to Cassie, which is a little weird. I guess that's what you do. So she was a drug dealer. Then they asked about someone named Ray J. Some of you may know who Ray J is. I don't know if that's a singer. It was. She said, so one of your dealers was Ray J, wasn't it? And everyone in the room was like, oh. I assume that this is some artist that people have heard of that I do not know who that is. But then they were like, not the singer. Oh, it was like, oh, wait, or was it? Let's move on. Let's just move on from that. Let's not talk about that. Okay. Did you do drugs every day? I don't know. Okay. Well, sometimes you had to be working. You got some clothing lines out, yeah, but they didn't really take off. They didn't really work, did they? No, not well. I mean, it's not because of anything we did wrong. It was the marketing was terrible. But it was okay. Whatever it was, so it was with the Diamond Supply Company problem. It wasn't anything having to do with Sean Combs that it didn't work. She's like, no, nothing to do with Sean Combs. That the little joint business venture with Diamond Supply making T-shirts and stuff failed. Anyhow, so they move past that, and she starts talking to her about her civil lawsuit, and this is where things started going really badly for Bana. This is where Nicole really started digging in on her. She's like, okay, so let's figure this out here. So you had broken apart from Cassie in 2018, but then you had this new venture where you started working together in late 2023, right? Yes. And around that time, she filed a lawsuit against Sean Combs for $30 million. And in that lawsuit, she brings up the whole balcony thing, right? And the whole time it's like, I don't know, I don't remember. And then finally, yes. I don't know, I'm not sure. Yes. Okay. So 2023. So she told you she was going to sue. Yes. You spoke to Cassie about her lawsuit. Yes. You went out and hired Tyrone Blackburn as a civil attorney. And then you went and hired Tyrone Blackburn as your civil attorney in January of 2024. So you see, she's going after him for money. She got paid. And then you decide, hey, I'm going to go get paid. She's like, well, it's not like that. I didn't hire him for that. Did you hire him to sue Sean Combs? No. I hired him for justice. Okay. And what does that mean? How would you get justice? I don't know. You wanted to get justice by suing Sean Combs. Isn't that true? Can you agree with me that this is, true? The way she would raise her question, so your way of getting justice was going to be by suing Sean Combs. True? That's the way she asks her questions. Makes a statement and finishes with true. True? And often getting a yes, but not always. See, so, and the whole time you're talking to Cassie about what she's putting in her complaint. True? Yes. And she put things when she wrote about the story in the balcony. True? No, not really. What is it written in her complaint? The incident with the balcony. It's written there, isn't it? I can refresh your recollection if you like. So she's like, yeah, it was in there. And you talked to her about what she was going to put in there, didn't you? I don't know what you mean. Did you talk to her about the story with the balcony? You talked to her about it before she filed her lawsuit. True? True. And you saw what she put in her complaint about the story with the balcony. True? True. And it wasn't the same story you told the jury today, was it? So I told her. So she's like, I told her it was wrong. That the way she had the story was wrong. She said there was a lot of differences there in the way she told the balcony story from the way you told the balcony story. Wasn't there? She's like, I don't know. There was a lot of differences. So was the story you told us today, was that true? Yes. Oh, okay. So then what was written in her complaint was not true. So I don't know. Well, she wrote that it was in a hotel. She said it was in a hotel. You said it was her apartment. So one is wrong here. She's like, well, I corrected that. And then I told her that she got it wrong. And I think they were supposed to correct that. Oh, okay. So, and you said that she said she didn't see it. You said she did see it. True? You said it happened on one date. She said it happened on a different day. You said one time that you're smoking a cigarette. Another time you said you were doing marijuana. Another time you said you were pretending you were doing marijuana. Those are three different stories, aren't they? I don't understand. Is that the same story? I don't understand. Is saying that you had a cigarette the same thing as saying you were having marijuana? No. So when you say one time that you had a cigarette, another time you say you were having marijuana, those are two different stories, right? I guess. You said that that the first time you told the story over, you said that it was at a party. This whole incident. So I don't remember that. So do I need to refresh your recollection? She's like, I don't know how that got down. She ends up refreshing her recollection. She says to her, "Oh, okay, yeah. So now you said you told the police that you didn't that you distinctly remember seeing Sean Combs charging at you." She's like, "Well, that was what my lawyer put down. That's not what I put down, and then I fired my lawyer." It was one way after another. She took this story and made it sound insane. And then she's like, "And how much drugs had you done that day before he tried throwing you over the balcony? He allegedly tried throwing you over the balcony." "Oh, I have no idea. But you did a lot of drugs that day, didn't you?" "Yes." "Okay." And she went after her on this story. The first time we told this story over. So she goes, and let's be clear here. So now you and Cassie are talking about and putting together what the story is, aren't you? She's like, that's not. She's like, no. Well, okay. Did you have a disagreement about what day it was? Yes. And then ultimately you came to the same story as to what day it was, right? Yeah. True. You had a disagreement. Cassie originally said that she didn't see anything at all. Then later on, after she talked to you, she said she saw it. True. You said you said that the first time you said that it was that it was at a party, and then now the party is gone. So you worked that out together with her. True. So you had different potential dates. And you worked out together what day it happened. You had different possible locations, whether it's an apartment or a hotel, and you worked out together what happened. True. You worked out who was there, because Cassie said that this other woman, Terry Rich, was there. You said she wasn't there. Did you talk to her about that? Yes, I spoke to her about that. And now you both end up coming to a conclusion that we're not going to leave Terry out of this. Now when we're telling the story from now on, when we're telling this story, we're going to be saying that Terry wasn't there. And that's the story. That's the way we're going to tell this story. Objection, please rephrase. So now after you talk to her, and she would couch it the way that Nicole was going after her, she would couch it as like, so first you said it over with that it's at a hotel, and then it's happening at her apartment, and then you decide to change your story and get on the same page that it's at the apartment. Objection, sustained. Please phrase it another way. So, and then she would phrase it to make it like, okay, I'm not saying that you definitely, you're concocting it, but we all know what she's saying, which is you concocted this whole story. And what's so damaging about this, what's so incredibly terrible about this, if you're the state, is not only does it make it seem as if Bana doesn't know what she's talking about, all of a sudden, this plants a very legitimate seed to ask questions whether we could trust Cassie, or whether Cassie's story has been affected by working together with Bana and potentially others. Because now you had Bana here on the stand, who seems to struggle with memory, struggle with drugs and her addictions, and changing her story. And the first time she goes to the police, it's one way. And then she said, you went to the police and you didn't say anything about this incident. And then after your lawyer files a demand letter, all of a sudden we get this incident comes up. And now you start telling the police about this incident. So how does that happen? It's like, I don't understand the question. Well, let's go through the timeline of events here. You spoke with the police on January 18, 2024. True? True. And then your lawyer sent a demand letter on January 31st, 2024. True. Objection. Sidebar. Sidebar. What's in the sidebar? The sidebar is she didn't write the letter and she doesn't know what day the letter was written. So she said she was aware of the letter, but she didn't have foundation that she knows when it was sent. In theory, maybe it was written before she went to the police. We don't know. Anyhow, and she was hitting her so hard about the fact that this didn't come up on the first, that the threat, there was another thing, the threat of I am the devil, I can kill you, did not come up in her first meeting with the police at all. And then the first time it comes up is with the incident on the balcony. And then it's like, no, it didn't happen in the incident on the balcony. It happened a different time at a photo shoot. Nicole was just eviscerating her. And by the time this whole thing is over, she said, I don't know, which direction was she facing? Apparently, multiple times she told this story over to the police. She vividly remembers that she could see Diddy lunging at her. She's facing back into the room with her back to the view. Tells a story over today that also supposedly another issue she's hitting on. You told the police he groped you. Today, you said he grabbed you by the sides. You said that he mashed his hands into your breasts. True? I don't remember telling them that. Well, here, let me refresh your recollection. Showing her statements to the police. The room was snickering, just at how badly she was being shredded, snickering. And then she starts going through the different times that she met with the police. And she brings up and she says, you met with the police in 2024, in January 2024, and then you met with them again in April of this year, 2025, and she gives off of the different dates, and she starts running through the dates with her, and she says, you met on, what are the dates that they met? You met on January 18, 2024, March 27, 2025, April 9, 2025, May 25th, 2025, June 2nd, 2025. June 3rd, 2025. Did you meet with them today? Yeah, I met with them today before I testified. Didn't you say on June 2nd that you don't really, that the events of what happened at the balcony are a little hazy, so you don't really remember it so well? I don't remember. That's Monday. That's Monday. That's Monday. She doesn't remember what she said on Monday? She doesn't remember saying she doesn't remember the balcony incident on Monday? How are we supposed to believe anything about what happened on the balcony? How? All these different versions. Today, she doesn't remember whether or not she told the police 2 days ago that she doesn't know, she doesn't really feel really confident, doesn't really remember what happened with the whole balcony incident. Wow. 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 How much worse can this get? How much worse can this get? How is anyone supposed to believe her about what happened in 2016 when she doesn't remember what happened 2 days ago? And now supposedly she's clean. Now, maybe she's suffering from PTSD. Maybe she has some sort of terrible trauma. It's possible. It's definitely possible. I'm not making fun of her. I'm making fun of the notion that we can have confidence in this story to say that this really happened. Because it seemed like a joke by the time it was all said and done. It seemed like a terrible, terrible joke. It was really, really bad. And worse yet, it it threw shade on the credibility of Cassie, because the implication that the defense wants the jury to take from this is that Cassie's story has been tainted by her friends, and that they're working together and they're having all these conversations with each other. And I'll tell you, sure as shooting, that woman there who was sitting there next to me, the big Diddy fan, that's what she's been screaming about for the last 2 weeks. They're all in cahoots together trying to get the big payday from Diddy. Each of them, this one wants 10 million, that one wants 10 million. They all want 10 million from him. And when she gets up there and admits that, hey, we talked about this, about what actually happened, and I can understand if you're sitting there as a survivor of trauma, I can understand that perhaps you sit and you talk to each other and you go over events. You're like, what do you remember? Especially people who are on drugs, and especially different people suffer through different forms of trauma. But you have to realize the reality is it doesn't look good that we can rely on the credibility of what you're saying. And you can bring in Dr. Dawn Hughes, come in here and testify about how trauma affects the memory. Okay. Maybe it does. It probably does. It makes sense and logical that it does. But then you have to ask yourself, how do you convict if you can't trust the memory? It's a tragedy, but, this is a man's life. You're throwing him in prison for purportedly committing these crimes. And I'm not saying this as a Diddy supporter. And if this guy ends up basically spending the rest of his life in prison, I ain't going to weep a tear for him. But if a jury ends up acquitting him because they're like, we have questions about the credibility here, some folks are going to want to say that they're starstruck and that they really, that they obviously they had to convict him. And I'll tell you right now, this was some terrible, terrible work today, and it hurt the credibility of Cassie. And what I speculated about is this: why would you put this woman on the stand June 2nd, on Monday? You see that she makes this terrible statement. I don't really remember the whole balcony incident so well. She even attacked on the knives thing. She's like, you told the police that there was that you saw them throw knives at each other, several times, and you couldn't come up with any incident. Finally, you come up with one incident. She destroyed her on this. So she's like, when Diddy walked in there, you told the police it happened in the kitchen. Well, I speculated there was a kitchen knife. How did he get into the apartment? I don't know. So he just came in there. Did he say anything before he threw the knife? No. So he just walks into Cassie's apartment, takes the knife, and throws it at her. That's what happened here? That's what happened here? That's what you want us all to believe. Where's he at? Okay. Why'd you say it was in the kitchen? How did he get to the kitchen? How did he get into the house? Did you call the police afterwards? No. Why didn't you call the police? Well, he left. He left as soon as Cassie threw the knife at him. So he left right when Cassie threw the knife at him. Yeah. And how did he get in? You had no idea how he got in. Weren't you afraid he would? So you're saying, well, once he left, I wasn't afraid anymore. Oh, weren't you afraid he'd just come back in the same way he came in the first time? I can't tell you how I felt at that time. Okay. So you ask yourself, why would the state put this woman on the stand? Why would you do that? You know that she's a walking disaster here. And I'll tell you, this was a disaster today was a disaster for the state. Why would you put her on the stand? And they're not done. There's more. We start tomorrow at 9 a.m. more cross. Could get worse, I guess. Hard to imagine, but it could. So you ask yourself, why would the state put her on? Like, why walk into this? Who runs face first into like a spinning, rotor from a propeller? Who runs face first into a propeller? Like, what are you going to stick your nose in a blender? Who does that? Why would you do that? And the answer to me, the most logical answer is because they told us they were going to. They told us in the opening statement that, he tried throwing a woman off a balcony. And once they told us that, and Cassie made reference to it, we didn't really hear much about that story since then. And if they don't once they say it in the opening statement, if they don't bring in the witness to talk about it, the defense is going to poke at it. Say, they told in opening statements that you're going to hear all about this balcony thing. You remember hearing anything about a woman throwing off a balcony? Why didn't she come in here and testify? They would get skewered in closing arguments by the defense. So I think they felt they had to put her up there. And that's something that they said an opening statement 3 weeks ago. And then you're prepping your witness 2 days ago, 3 weeks after your opening statements, and she's like, I don't remember much about the whole balcony thing. It's like, why did you get in bed with this? You should have realized that there were problems with this story. It was a mistake in the opening. That's my guess. It shouldn't have come up in the opening. Anyway, Gross continues tomorrow. I gotta get out of here. I've got a show I'm supposed to do. I'm 15 minutes late on that already, so I need to get on out of here. But that's what we got so far. And she did a great job. She did a really Nicole Westmoreland for the defense. This was the most effective cross I've seen from this team. A very highly touted team. Nicole Westmoreland has been the star so far. That was great. It was a really, really very effective. She was going after for her demand letter. I mean, I gave you the highlights of it. You sort of need to even go through and she was fighting through, I don't know, I don't understand the question, I don't know, objection. She fought through a lot, and she did some great work. So I'm tipping my cap to her. Like I said, I'm not playing favorites here. I see good work, I'm calling it out. I see bad work, I call it out. I call out defense for what I thought was bad work in the beginning of this show, and I did that this morning. I'll call them out for superior work this afternoon. And that's what I'm trying to bring to you here. Legal analysis as to what's happening. If you like that sort of thing, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the bell. Till tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone. Godspeed.